get the shop. Go turn the propane on, okay? Oh. Good morning. Turn some of these lights on. Out here today. Oh yeah. Okay. Orange, red. All right, everybody. We are going to be building the Foundry furnace today out of a unserviceable propane tank. Now, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take out the valve, and then we need to cut the top off of it. So I'm going to turn it over to my friend here. Yeah, so I hope you guys all enjoy the video. Stay tuned for the next one. Take it easy for the video.
Welcome back, everybody, to long-awaited Foundry furnace build long version. Yeah, sorry it's been taking so long. Most of the month had all kinds of crazy stuff go on. So, but when you're taking these propane tanks apart, I always do it, even though probably don't need to be as cautious as I am or seem in this video. Is that make sure that they're completely empty for one. And, you know, as you'll see here as I'm taking this out, I'm kind of tentative. But, you know, better to be overcautious than undercautious when taking these valves out. Who knows? I've actually had some residual gas be in there and it kind of blow out. So, not so much fun. But, yeah, so we're just going to be marking this up to create our lid. And you don't really have to mark it since, I mean, there is that weld seam right there. But it was just kind of force of habit to mark it all up. And these are unserviceable. Like the propane fillers won't even put a new valve in them. So I'm sure they're perfectly fine tanks to be used if you can find someone to put a new valve in them, but they won't do it. So we turn them into furnaces and forges and stoves and all kinds of cool stuff. So now we were going to use our plasma to do this, and we started to, but we had some really bad, not really bad, but it was not cutting correctly for one, because the electrode was bad in it, and for two, it decided to kind of turn itself into a scramjet, you know, so that was after putting water in it and displacing anything, but just on all the excess fumes from, you know, the years of being used as a propane tank. You know, even the sparks from the cutoff wheel were kind of setting off some of the fumes. So right now we're just deburring the edge, getting ready for the next step. And there it is. We're going to be pouring the table. This is just refractory cement. It has a mix of mortar, some stone, and like a fiberglass. You know, it's highly ventilated where I'm at. You know, if you're doing it within an enclosed space, probably good to wear a mask or at least a respirator. You know, but if you're doing it outside or, you know, in a highly ventilated space, you'll be fine. One thing, like any kind of cement or mortar, you know, a little bit of water at a time. You know, get it to a pudding consistency, a thick maybe porridge consistency, and then level it out. And we're just making sure it's all mixed up really good. And this is just going to create that nice level surface you'll see here in a minute for our crucibles. Well, fire brick first we'll sit on. And there it is. We put it in here for 7 days next to a heater. During when we're doing this, it's pretty cold, so we're actually going to do another one today. So there it is, 7 days later, burner assembly. This is one of the most simple burners that I've ever built. It's not my design, but I took it from a master smith out of Walla Walla, Washington, named Bruce Bump. He puts this on all of his vertical forges, and it works really, really good as a forced air burner. You know, because that's what it is. It's a dump. It's not like trashy. That's not what I mean. It is a fuel dump burner. So you can make these to where they're nozzled, to where they will. You can PSI gauge them, but we don't have that on here. We control it, the flow with valves, just like the one on Fred. It's controlled at the valve. So highly technical measurements here. That's approximately 6 inches, maybe 5.5, 6 inches of tubing there. Yes, it is galvanized. Yes, we do burn it off. Is that the safest way? Well, I have a highly ventilated shop. I opened up all my doors, and I was not in the shop when I burned this. Yeah, so there's various ways of doing it. Burning was just the easiest way for me to get it heated up and ready to go for the next step. So, which you'll see here shortly. But yeah, we figured out that the electrode on this needed to be replaced, and this is what we were looking at right here. It wasn't arcing across, so we put a new electrode in it. And man, guess what happens when you replace the consumables in it? And that happened because a little bit of water from the air compressor. I wasn't getting enough dry enough air, and so I had to get a new air dryer and put it on there. And then, bam, works great. Smooth cut too. This is that like under $200 plasma tube. It's really good little tool. I'm really liking it. I thought it was gonna go completely tits up on me, and I was like, man, I guess that's what you get. But it ended up being that my air was too moist. All right, so we needed to flare this to fit the hole that we have there. And we initially started out, we're going to just push it over top of the flare on the burner. Well, that's not going to work, you know, and I figured that out real quick. That's just not the way of doing it. So we went and grabbed one of the large ball bearings that I have there, and that's a large hunk of 52-100 ball bearing. And we went from the ball bearing to a 8-pound shot put, which you'll see here in a minute. This is still the ball bearing. We're going to shove that down in there just a little bit farther. And it works great. I mean, for flaring stuff out. It worked really nice. Got stuck in there, but we got it out. And there's the 8-pound shot put. I don't hit this shot put very hard because I still use these to help my daughters train. But they are very nice swages. And there we go. There is our flared burner sleeve. Now, it's not quite how we want it. We need that burner coming out at a slight angle, and so we're going to have to grind down part of this flared portion of our sleeve in order to get it close, the majority of it close enough to fit, so you can put some filler in there on the bigger gaps. I use a wire fed. If you're running a a stick welder, you wouldn't necessarily need to fill it. Have some filler rod in there, but since I'm mainly set up for wire feed right now. I mean, it's a 3-in-1 welder. I could easily run stick, but I don't have any stick, don't have any rod, so we run wire. We had a big old spool of it. And you can see right there that how we're getting a really clean, a really nice angle, clean angle all the way across. Now we're going to mark our holes for our set bolts to hold the whole burner standpipe. It's a horizontal pipe instead of the vertical pipe coming out the side. Now I didn't do any kind of drill press footage. Figured it's just drilling holes, so we just kept here right at the bench, center punching our holes here. These are 7/16 inch bolts, double nutted. So there's the nut we're going to weld on the outside of the burner sleeve, and then the nut on the inside holds everything tight and in place. So we're getting a relatively straight set bolt. And you see just what we were trying to do there, and there it is. And those inside bolts or nuts come off. So in these old welding footage, I was playing with the brightness and contrast to not get so much lens flare for you guys. Kind of resembles that lens filter that a lot of people put on their cameras, you know, when they're welding. I think it worked out pretty good. Not as, you know, seizure-causing flashes, so little less astringent to the eyes. And it worked out pretty good. So we just rotated between the non-contrast when we weren't welding, and so it's like really low brightness, high contrast, low color, low vignette to get that look. So it worked out pretty good. So as you guys may have noticed, I'm trying new things with the videos. So the intros right now, but the next video we have coming out, we'll be doing it'll be the Travel Forge build, and I'll be working on individual parts of that build simultaneously within the same shot. So you'll have multiples of me within the same shot working on the build at the same time, and then interacting with myself and handing parts to myself to be then put on the main body of the forge. So trying to get a little more fancy with the videos. Hopefully you guys appreciate it, while at the same time keeping the level of education to the max. So now we're welding that sleeve in place. You can see there's a gap there. That's what I'm talking about when we're going to add a little filler. So a little filler rod goes in there to take up the gap when you're doing wire feed. Like I said, if you're using stick, you would have no problem filling that gap. I'm not the best welder in the world, so you can judge me all you want on my welding ability. I make it stick. I mean, it's not going to pass any muster in any kind of weld shop. That's not what we're about here. We're just making a tool, you know. And yes, we do sell them, and we try and get the best welds we possibly can when we do. And eventually we'll get the TIG, and we'll get the gas. This is all flux core right now, so we'll get the gas and everything for the TIG and the wire fed, and we'll start teaching ourselves how to TIG. did a little bit of TIGging when I was in college for three-dimensional sculpture. When you're putting together finished sculptures, you need to TIG them together. So I have done it in the past, and we'll have a lot better welds then. So, but for now, this is what we get. So we're putting in the port for our gas, and the burner's almost done. You know, I mean, this is not a rough build by any means, and we marked the place where we want to put our port, and it's just a 3-inch pipe nipple that we'll drill a hole in the side, and what we're marking right now is where the bolts on the standpipe rubbed in, and we're going to put little notches for those bolts to fit back into. And there we go. We just ended up drilling the hole there, put it in there, nice snug fit, and we're just going to weld this up. Like I said, this is a really simple forced air burner. Takes, I mean, you can put any kind of squirrel cage on the back side of this thing on the intake as much as if you want. I use hair dryers with a cold setting, and they work really, really well. You know, perfect CFM, CFW, something cubic feet of wind, probably CFW. I don't know. Don't quote me. It's perfect air flow. Let's put it that way. All right. So that was burner. Done. Now we're onto the lid. And this is gonna be a simple lid design. I was thinking, oh, well, let's throw some hinges on it, and you know, we're gonna put a hinge on it. It's gonna lift up. No, we're not gonna do that. This is not a wide enough base to counter that weight that's eventually gonna be on that lid. And so this is gonna be just a lift off lid, and we're marking the top hole right now so that it's almost a breather hole for your furnace where your heat comes out and pushes in it that oxygen exchange, right? So if it was completely closed up, it wouldn't burn. It wouldn't burn as good as when you have an opening for the pressures to be released. And that's exactly what it is. I mean, if you have a really closed up, even gas forge, it's gonna cough and sputter and almost blow your doors out. It will blow your doors out. And having that opening at the top allows for all the heat to rise, which if you have that crucible in the bottom and the burner blowing on it and you know, circulating that heat in there to heat your crucible evenly. So right now we're kind of rounding the corners on our tabs, which will kind of look like feet here in a minute, but it's what's going to hold that lid in place on the main body of the furnace. And we're just cleaning up. We didn't need to clean up the whole ring, but we went around the whole side, and that way we could place our tabs like you see right here, specifically where we wanted to place them, and them not be all weird looking, you know, because you could grind a spot here and it's maybe, you know, not where you exactly want to put it, so then you got to grind anyway. So if you just grind the whole thing around, you can just put them wherever you want. And we're not measuring any of this besides this right here. We did measure. These are going to become the handles. So we marked our center point here. And this is 5/8 square. A little bit of an issue here. I should have grabbed the big wrench that you'll see here in a minute the first time. But I didn't until now. This was way easier. Sometimes I just don't think things out, you know, right away. And so we're over there setting that inner corner and making sure everything's good to go. We only really showed one of these being made because, I mean, they're just two identical handles that we bent here. So, and those are soft bends. They're not going to be hard square corners. There's no sense in that. We had to cut about kind of a 45. It's not quite a 45 on these. And then once again, clean up the area to be welded. And these are pretty heavy duty. I mean, so will they get hot? Are you still going to want to wear welding gloves to pull this off? Absolutely. Because they will get some heat out there. And you don't want to be touching any part of this furnace with bare hands when it's going. So you're still going to have to wear a welding glove to pull this lid off. As you can see, the tabs that hold it in place on there also work as little feet. So when you set this thing down, your insulation, your cable in there is not, and it'll have refractory on it too, isn't touching anything. Right now we're welding little barbs on the inside to hold the KO wool, spun ceramic wool, into place so it won't fall out. You see that one tab there, and there's 3 tabs in a triangle pattern, and we're on to insulation here. This is probably the most cost in the build right here is the insulation installation. Say that 5 times fast. Because you have so much drop, you have so much waste that you have to pull off the sides. It becomes, you end up losing quite a bit. So now I did have a 3-inch hole saw somewhere, but I can't find it. So we used the 2-inch and then spread the hole out to fit the insulation out to fit. So, and that's just an old pizza knife. Works really good for chopping this insulation down. We slide it in there, and we ended up changing it to where the main piece was over the burner. Made a whole lot of sense. Now we're going to chop this down. Now we don't waste that part. That part actually gets used, and you'll see here in a minute the part that we cut off the very top. This part right here that we're cutting right now will fill the gap. So we got our hole in there for our flare to fit through, and we pressure fit that in there. And that piece that was slid in there was the piece that we just cut off the other end. So, and there it is, folks. This will get a brick in the bottom, and it will be refractoried all the way through. But that's it. That's the Foundry furnace. Put a thin coat of refractory on the insulation and hook it up with gas, air source, heat it up, throw a crucible in there, and you're good to go.